watching a couple vids, maybe, or maybe just this one. I'm not sure yet.
Home. The word alone brings everyone a sense of familiarity and comfort. A place that to each of us is personal, but at the same time, something we can all relate to. The place we grew up, had many, if not most, of our childhood memories. The ultimate safe zone, where we can relax and truly be ourselves, finding comfort in the walls, protecting us from the outside world. But for one family, that safety was taken from them by someone. A person who seemed to know more about the newly acquainted house than a realtor would ever hope to know. A person who had a commitment to watching the massive 6-bedroom residence at 657 Boulevard. And a person who would prove to be one of the most elusive people in recent decades. This is the true story of an individual who still remains unknown. A person who had made life for one family a living hell, caused the community to panic, and got the internet to lose their minds over who really is the Watcher. The story begins one evening in June of 2014, when newly acquired homeowners Derek and Maria Broaddus were busy renovating their new home that they had recently begun the steps of moving into. After another day of getting things closer to how they wanted their dream home to be, Derek stepped outside to go and check the mail. The normal things were in there: bills, promotional brochures, and the like. But with this bundle of sealed envelopes, there was one that stood out. No clear piece on the side that displayed their address and name, nor any recognizable postage or symbol anywhere on the outside of the letter. Instead, there, in handwritten lettering, addressed the new owners. A bit puzzled by the anonymity of the letter, Derek proceeded to tear open the envelope, and doing so, was about to set off a series of motions that would become the Broaddus' nightmare. The letter read as following.
Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched it in the 1960s. It is now my time. How did you end up here? Did 657 Boulevard call to you with its force within? Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I will find out. Do you need to fill the house with the young blood I requested? Better for me. Was your old house too small for the growing family? Or was it greened to bring me your children? Once I know their names, I will call to them and draw them to me. I asked the woods to bring me young blood, and it looks like they listened. You don't want to make 657 Boulevard unhappy. You have children. I have seen them. So far, I think there are 3 that I counted. Are there more on the way? Who am I? There are hundreds and hundreds of cars that drive by 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I am in one. Look at all of the windows you can see from 657 Boulevard. Maybe I am in one. Look out any of the many windows in 657 Boulevard at all the people who stroll by each day. Maybe I am one. Welcome, my friends. Welcome. Let the party begin. The Watcher.
Welcoming neighbors truly are a blessing, aren't they? Free babysitters, them letting you.
the real devil in Ohio. In early 2011, Amish people in the Jefferson County, Ohio town of Burgles began reporting crimes to county authorities. These crimes were reported as beard-cutting attacks by fellow Amish who broke into victims' homes, violently beat them, and cut their beards off in shame. While all of this may seem minor, after FBI involvement, they discovered that this Amish group was actually a breakaway sect, or cult, if you will, who became a cult under the iron-fisted leadership of Bishop Sam Mullet. There's far more here than meets the eye, far beyond beard-cutting attacks.
Authorities raided a compound of breakaway Amish group a few hours ago in Jefferson County, 2 hours southeast of Cleveland. 7 men were arrested on federal hate crime charges.
The leader of the so-called Amish cult, Samuel Mullet Sr. and his followers guilty of a crime that captured national attention. Drugs, sex, and attacks recorded on video. New evidence in the hate crime case against an Amish sect.
They're just religious thugs, religious terrorism.
Mullet got 15 years in prison after 14 of his followers were convicted.
These attacks left the victims beaten, bloodied, and bruised. The defendant after defendant after defendant would stand there and offer yet again to sacrifice his or her own life for Mr. Mullet. It's just proof of what we said all along. Mr. Mullet is a cult leader. Mr. Mullet is a thug. Mr. Mullet is a bully. And Mr. Mullet belongs where criminals belong, in federal prison.
I believe if Sam Mullet is put away for a long time, that it'll take care of the problem, that the other people will get the help that they need, and they won't have to worry about being controlled with an iron fist by Sam Mullet.
Now, the man who was the mastermind, prosecutors say of it all, Bishop Samuel Mullet, he was found guilty of the 7 of 9 charges against him, including 4 of the 5 hate crime charges.
The eastern Ohio town of Burgles.
No matter if he gets life in prison, he's still going to be our bishop here. He's going to help us with everything.
Yeah, if I'd have known this would happen, I wouldn't have been there. I figured they'd take a message off them to leave us alone. And I really don't know what to expect. I've never been inside of a jail.
After FBI investigation, they declared Mullet to be the criminal ringleader of this Amish cult. Sam Mullet ordered the beard-cutting attacks that led to this investigation. 15 of Mullet's followers then engaged in the attacks on fellow community members. Mullet is said to have locked people in chicken coops for days at a time in the hot sun to cleanse them of impure thoughts. He was found to have kept women in bondage in his basement and have sex with them to cleanse them of the devil, in his words. After a raid on Mullet's Ohio compound by law enforcement, they discovered all of this sexual violence and misconduct, false imprisonment, as well as several pounds of marijuana and AK-47 rifles with thousands of rounds. This Amish cult began in '95 when Mullet was shunned from his former community. Eight other Amish families soon followed Mullet to their new community in Burgles, Ohio, where Sam became their bishop. Many or most in the community were afraid to speak out against Mullet or to act against him. His reign lasted 16 years before being brought down by the FBI. You never know what or who is lurking right under our noses, operating as we sleep, terrorizing in the darkness of night. This is the true story.
Hey Philly, what's up? Welcome back to another amazing episode of Film Timer. So guys, in this amazing episode, we are going to discuss what's the real story behind Netflix's Devil in Ohio. Are you guys excited? So let's get started. So keep up with me till the end. Comment right below this video. Subscribe if you still haven't. and turn on the post notification for more videos. Devil in Ohio is set in a fictional town with a fictional cult. Netflix's newest thriller series tells the story of a cult that is known as Slayach and Diavale, which absolutely does not exist. We made it all up, Politan confirmed. I really took this as an exciting task to create something that is unique and bespoke, but also feels real. To make the cults seem realistic, Politan and her team delved into the world of various cults, interviewing former members, and pulling from their rituals and ideologies to create their own for the small screen. We wrote documents about the cult that we shared with our heads of departments and creative teams, so everyone was on the same page, she continued. Our composer came up with this stunning hymn he wrote after we gave him the language of our cult, the Morning Star, the Dawning. The costumes are inspired by our backstories. They came from Ireland, they were farmers, they lived in West Virginia, their crops failed, forcing them to move to Ohio. All these details resulted in a set that seemed horrifyingly real, so much so that it even left Death Channel herself a little creeped out. There's certain elements, sometimes being on set, you'd be like, oh, this is kind of creepy. Even though I don't believe any of this is real, but you can't help feeling a bit creeped out at times by the subject matter. The actress even told Entertainment Weekly. And while the story is set in Ohio, the town itself, where the story is set, is fictional. We made up a fictional town in the story, but we really wanted to be as specific as we could for the Ohio viewers and give those Easter eggs for the audience, Politan explained. The author and showrunner also revealed that she has a personal connection to Ohio, having visited prior to writing the book to see friends and family. This is the real story behind Devil in Ohio. And while the characters and setting itself are fictional, Politan also revealed that there is a real-life story that the show is loosely based on. Our executive producer, Rachel Miller, came to me and she said, I heard this true story of this girl who escaped from a satanic cult, and the psychiatrist's family took her in, she recalled during an interview with Salon. And I was like, oh my God, I have to tell that story. That said, Politan also explained that they didn't set out to do a docuseries. It's inspired by true events, but it's not a documentary. That's just a different kind of storytelling, she further explained. For this, I felt that the best outlet would be to free it up creatively and fictionalize the details and let it take on a life of its own. In a 2017 entry in her blog, Politan also shared that many of the perturbing aspects of the story in the series were based on true events. She added, my stomach churned whenever I heard about the scary rituals, planting of mind control triggers, and perhaps the most disturbing, how it tore a formerly tight-knit family apart. In some ways, Devil in Ohio still hits close to home. The story behind the series may have been set in a fictional town, but as it turns out, the Buckeye State was once the site for a series of satanic cult murders in the past. It was a deadly incident that left 4 people dead. Back in 1999, a manhunt was launched after 3 teenage girls and a Sunday school teacher were found brutally murdered by factory worker Lawrence Michael Hensley. The teenage victims, Sherry Kimbler, Tasha Barrett, and Amy Mikesell, were found deceased in the suspect's home after they were abducted. Another victim, Veronica Eg, also suffered from a gunshot wound but managed to escape. Bible teacher Brett Wildermuth was shot dead in his home. Hensley eventually surrendered after a standoff with police 5 days after the killings. During his pre-trial hearing, he pled guilty to avoid a possible death penalty. His attorney, Court Gatterdam, also said that Hensley suffers from sexual addiction and that he studied Satanism after experiencing a spiritual crisis due to his problems. Gatterdam added, he was possessed by the thought that Satan was more powerful than God. Politan has also said that the real story that inspired her book and the series also took place in Ohio. She has refused to disclose any more information. So guys, this was all about today's video. Share as much as you can, but really
I love it when you come to this office.
The more that I can know about seeing the warehouse, seeing how the team works together, really gives me that sense of knowledge for what it is that you're doing.
You understand exactly what we need.
It's fucking stupid.
Hey, Philly, what's up?
Warning, the content of this video may be disturbing to some people and arousing to others. Proceed with caution. The internet of today is nowhere near as horrendous as it was just a few years ago. Most shock sites have been shut down, and Reddit is just a watered-down version of what it once was. That being said, you can still find some pretty f***ed up things on Reddit to this day. And in this video, we're going to take a look at some of Reddit's most disgusting communities. Again, r/RateMyPoop. Believe it or not, this is the least disturbing one we're going to be talking about today. I just wanted to start us off light, before we get into the darker stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still gross. I mean, it's poop, but hey, we all do it. So, Rate My Poop is pretty much exactly as advertised. People will post a photo of their bowel movements, and people in the comments will rate it. Simple as that. Anti-children subreddit. So, we're going to start off with r/childfree. On the surface, this just seems like a community for people who aren't interested in having children. But pretty quickly, you'll come to realize that these people just straight up hate kids. And when I say hate, I don't mean they find them slightly annoying. I'm talking about a real burning hatred for children, okay? They hate kids more than I hate Franklin the Turtle. I think this user sums up the entire subreddit pretty well. I don't love children, but just don't want any of my own. I do not like kids and don't like to be around them. I don't find pregnancy to be a beautiful miracle. I think everything about it is disgusting and horrific. I don't find small children to be funny and cute. I find them to be gross, sticky, germy, and loud. I'm not going to say that everybody in this subreddit thinks like this woman, but a good amount of them do. They even have like their own slang for people who have kids. They refer to women who have kids as breeders, and they refer to children as crotch fruit. Look at this. Sister with 9 crotch fruit bitter that I spent $400 on a cat, so I sent a donation to Planned Parenthood in her name. I spent $9,000 on a vacation and my breeder cousin called me disgusting. Listen, man, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a big kids guy either, alright? I think they're kind of annoying, but this is just so bitter and hateful and gross that I've decided I'm gonna have 3 kids just to spite these people. So I'm gonna pick 3 lucky people at random and impregnate their moms. If you want to be chosen, just comment Dantavius, please impregnate my mom, for a chance to have Dantavius Jr. as your sibling. Anyways, if you thought child free was crazy, there's another subreddit called Antinatalism. And these people don't just hate kids, they think having children should be a crime. Antinatalism is a philosophical belief that having children is morally wrong and cannot be justified. Now, I would argue that these people actually aren't as bad as the child-free people. They basically believe that bringing a child into this fucked up world will only create pain and suffering for the kid, and therefore is irresponsible and wrong. And even though I don't agree with that, it's at least more understandable than just hating kids r/breeding. On the other side of those anti-kid subreddits, you have r/breeding, which is a fetish sub. These people are aroused by women getting pregnant and getting women pregnant, which is pretty fucking weird, but also not surprising at all. r/incest. Listen, man, call me old-fashioned, but I think having intercourse with your relatives is fucking weird. Okay, I know everybody's only saying, don't kink shame, don't kink shame. Well, that, alright? If your kink is wanting to bang one of your relatives, you should absolutely be ashamed of yourself, alright? People 5,000 years ago knew you weren't supposed to bang your siblings. And we haven't learned. But apparently there's at least 250,000 people who disagree with me. The r/incest subreddit has over 290,000 subscribers. And this is some truly depraved stuff, man. Sisters banging brothers, moms banging sons, uncles banging cousins. It's a goddamn free-for-all. Now, this is pretty depressing on its own, but it gets much, much worse. There's another subreddit called r/inbreeding, and their banner says, when just f***ing your family isn't enough. These people believe not only should you have coitus with your family, but you should also have kids with them, because it's like a good thing. I mean, I can't tell if this is a fetish or if these people are for real, it's really hard to tell. But let's take a look at some of these posts. Currently trying for a baby with my son. If we are successful, I hope to encourage my son to begin breeding with his daughter/sister the second she turns 18. What do y'all think? Keep it in the family? What the fuck? And the comments are even worse than the actual post. Definitely, there will be one big happy incest family to play with in the coming years, and possibly decades. Super lucky son. Definitely the best to keep it in the family. Makes them bond super tight. Oof. Then we got this gem. My husband wants to have a second baby with our daughter, and of course I agree with it. Okay, I can't do this anymore, man. I'm too uncomfortable with this Freudian bullshit. And these were the most tame ones I could find, by the way. Like, I can't even show most of the posts in these subreddits. r/coming on figurines. I found this one on an iceberg chart on Reddit, and it just stood out to me. And it's exactly what you think it is. That's all I'm going to say. The description is very accurate. r/iblech. Iblech is the opposite of eye bleach. And let me tell you, I was on this subreddit for like 30 seconds total, and I literally wanted to pour bleach in my eyes. Like, I already saw in my short time browsing a dude get beheaded, another guy with his brain hanging out, genitals mutilated in multiple ways. In short, I wouldn't recommend it. Honestly, I'm surprised this subreddit hasn't been banned yet. 50/50. This one is kind of like iBlack, but only half as bad. I mean, pretty much everybody knows about 50/50, but in case you don't, each post on here has a 50% chance of being something horrendous and a 50% chance of being something delightful. Like this one, for example. It could either be a delicious uncut pear or a decaying prolapsed anus. I'm not going to tell you guys which one it was. You got to figure that one out for yourself. Actually, don't. It was a pear. It was a pear. Don't go on this subreddit. But honestly, this one's kind of fun. I'm not gonna lie. Like, yeah, sure, you might see some stuff that will scar you for the rest of your life, but it's quirky. r/sounding. Oh man, this one is messed up. Let me read the description. Sounding is the practice of inserting objects into the urethra for sexual or mental pleasure. So whatever you're imagining right now, it's 10 times worse than that. Okay, I saw a stapler. I literally saw a stapler inside a guy's pee-pee. And there was also another sub called r/sounding meetups, where I guess guys meet up to stick each. I don't know. r/thinspo. According to the subreddit's description, thinspo is simply an inspiration for people to get or stay thin. And that sounds great. Everybody knows being thin is healthy, right? Well, not in this case, because when they say thin, they mean really thin, like unhealthy. The sub has been rightly criticized for glorifying and promoting anorexia, and there's been a lot of calls for it to get taken down. r/blueberry. This is like the most specific fetish I've ever heard of. So, you guys remember Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory, where that girl chews a stick of gum and it turns her into a giant blueberry? According to Vice.com, the blueberry kink is a subgenre of several other kinks. It combines force feeding, expansion or inflation porn, supersized, big beautiful women, as well as elements of bondage and submission. There's often a humiliation element or a caretaking tenderness, or a combination of the two. So there you have it. This just goes to prove that anything you can think of has been sexualized in some way, alright? Rule 34 is not just a theory, it's a fact. Drug subreddits. So my buddy Ghost Gum covered this topic, but I'm going to sum it up. There's a subreddit for pretty much every drug you can think of. You got the more tame ones like r/trees, which is a weed subreddit, not to be confused with r/weed, which is a subreddit about trees. Now, stoner culture is pretty cringe, in my opinion, and this subreddit is no exception. But in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty harmless, especially when you compare it to some of the other ones we're going to talk about. Then you got r/LSD, which turns the cringe up to 11. These people think that LSD will solve all of the problems in the world and has zero consequences. They also think that they're the most enlightened and brilliant people on the planet for doing it. But at the end of the day, LSD still probably won't ruin your life, unlike the more hardcore stuff like r/crack, r/heroin, and r/meth. And you're probably thinking to yourself, these subreddits are probably for people who are trying to recover from addiction, and they're just looking for a support network. Wrong. The majority of people in these subreddits have no intention of quitting anytime soon. So the content mostly consists of memes about doing these drugs, or photos of them taking the drugs. But the worst thing is people egging each other on. In the r/meth subreddit, the top rated post is a guy flushing his stash down the toilet and saying he's done being an addict. And most of the comments were supportive, but then you have comments like this. Why would you stop? What a waste of time. I can barely get any up here in Wisconsin. You just go flush your shit. Gosh, that pisses me off. I respect you for wanting to get clean, but why not just sell it or something? Hey, man, he's right. Didn't your parents tell you there's kids in Africa who don't even have meth? And you're just gonna waste it? Absolutely selfish. r/corned beef approved too. This sub is called the home of degeneracy, and for good reason. So a while back, Reddit user Corned Beef made his own subreddit that basically curated the most disgusting stuff on Reddit. If something was horrendous enough, it was deemed to be Corned Beef approved. And the original sub got banned last year, but this one was made shortly after, and I'm actually curious to see how long it takes for this one to get banned. I don't think it's going to be around for much longer, honestly. And if you get curious and decide to check this sub out for yourself, I'm begging you not. Like, seriously, I know every time I ask you guys not to look something up, you're just gonna go and do it anyways. But just this one time, listen to me, okay? I can't even begin to describe the types of things I saw. But by far, the worst thing I came across was a photo of Nikocado Avocado getting stooked by his boyfriend. And I still have the image burned into my head. r/crazy cat lady first. On May 2020, a post was made in the Don't Fuck With Cats subreddit with the title Crazy Cat Lady. So my friend was on Omegle, and she came across a girl who told her that under the interest furry, there was a woman on there who killed, burned, and skinned cats. Some people experienced the burning, others the skinning. She experienced her holding a skull. Holding the skull. At first my friend thought it was fake, but then she saw her thumb in its jaw, and then she poked the eye out. She snapped a picture, and the girl was laughing at the dead cat, laughing at my friends and us on the phone. She's still on there right now showing off the dead kitten. Later on, somebody posted photo evidence of this crazy cat bitch holding skulls. Obviously, I'm not going to show you these pictures, but there are a few of her wearing a coyote pelt that I can show you. There's also a photo of her fridge which supposedly contained cat meat, and some people even said they saw her eating cat meat, but there's no evidence of that specifically. Either way, people were obviously horrified that this was going on, so the r/crazy cat lady first subreddit was formed to try and catch her. Now, it should be mentioned that some people were suspicious that this cat killer was even real, and they thought maybe this whole thing was part of some messed up ARG. Look at the subreddit for this case, r/crazy cat lady first. It's pretty weird how new all of the accounts are on that subreddit. Some of them are hours old, including one of the moderators. Another mod account is 4 days old. None of them are moderating other subs. Most users I look at have no posting history outside of this subreddit. Where are the videos of her actually harming or killing animals? I don't want to see them, but so far I've only seen nasty photos and a lot of claims with little evidence. But this theory was proved wrong when the cat killer, aka Crystal Scott, was arrested in Indiana a month later. Also, it should be mentioned that the Crazy Cat Lady first subreddit was completely fucking useless in tracking her down. In fact, they probably did more harm than good, but despite that, she was still sentenced to 2 years in prison, which honestly seems kind of light for somebody who's a potential future serial killer. And last but not least, the most disturbing subreddit ever created, r/Dantavius. It's full of people talking about Franklin the Turtle. Obviously horrifying. But if you're brave enough to check it out, feel free to post video suggestions or something.